Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. If you watched this last video here, you know we're having some issues with the alternator on the Forester, so that's what we're going to tackle today. When I came to move it, I had the battery light on and I have the engine management light on. The code that they came up was this one. Now in certain Subarus, for what I've been reading, it does say that is the brake booster that has high input, and in some others it says that the alternator circuit is low. So what we're going to do is check everything, check fuses and stuff like that. The health on the battery is something that we normally overlooked, and it's something that we're going to check today just to see how much power we got when the car is running and when the car is not running. Right next to the battery we got a main fuse box, and we're going to check all the fuses there to make sure we got continuity and power on them. First thing we're going to do is check the power on the battery when the vehicle is off. And for that all we need to do is get a multimeter on DC voltage, with the positive prof in the positive side of the battery and the negative on the negative, of course, and then we get a reading. As you can see, we got almost 12 volts. It should be a bit higher than that, but the battery is not been charging, so if we go and start the vehicle, that should be going up to 13-14 volts. So all we need to do now is just start the car and see what happens. So as you can see, we start the vehicle and we get the battery even lower than it was before instead of higher. So we got an issue. Either it could be a fuse, it could be a connector, it could be the alternator, it could be the tension on the belt, it could be a few things. It could be the battery, even though I have tested the battery and I have charged it and it's a good battery. So we know it's not the battery, let's carry on. Right here we got our main fuse and relay box, as you can read there. And right at the top it says open. So all we're going to do is unclip that and remove the lid. Most vehicles won't remove this plastic cover. It will tell you right there exactly what fuse does what. So right here, that one there, that 100 amp fuse, that's our main fuse. So we're going to check that one, then we're going to check this one here, which is for the alternator, and one of those two 10s, I think is the one in the middle, is the other one for the alternator as well, so we're going to check them. To do continuity on your multimeter, you need to find this symbol right here. And before we start checking fuses, what we're going to do, see if I can do it in front of the camera. So we're going to put them two together and that should beep. If that beeps, it means that we got continuity. So as I said, this is our main fuse. So we're going to go to one side of the fuse and to the, let's see if I can actually do it. There we go. Alright, as you can see on both sides, and that's beeping, so that's good. The next one we're going to check is this one right here, which is a 50 amp. I believe it's this one. That one there. I believe it's this one here. That as well is for the alternator. So what we're going to do is remove it and do continuity on this one. Once we remove the fuse, we do the same process. We put one on one side, one on the other. That's beeping, that's good. So next one is going to be this one here, okay? Which is this one right there. Luckily for us, you can see that the fuse has two holes right there, two metal tips. So we can do the same thing. We can go just to one side of the fuse, as you can see right there, and you can hear the beeping, so we're all good. Let's put this back in here. I'm not going to record myself going through every single fuse, but you get the gesture. You just do that in every single fuse and then check. I know some of them they're not related to it, but it's good to know if all the fuses are working since you're there. You do the same thing inside, so you do the same thing under the dash. Just check your fuses, mostly the one related to ignitions and stuff like that. And another thing that we can do now to double check our fuses, since we know now that we got continuity through them, is to start the vehicle and get our multimeter on voltage again, like we did with the battery. And what we're going to do is put the positive side to one side of the fuse, and the other one to unearth on the car any bolt to the vehicle, like for example the ones on the suspension, the strut towers there, one there on the negative side, and this is where we will know if we go power going through the fuse on both sides. You can perform this test with the vehicle on and off, but bear in mind certain fuses are not going to be having any power unless the ignition or the engine is running. And then what we do is put the positive on one side here, right, and the negative, as I said, you can go there, you can go to the terminal of the battery, and we should have the same amount of power that we have on the battery. So if I put that one there, for example, let's see, if I put that one there, and then we go to the fuse right there, we got the same amount of power that we had on the battery. If we go on the other side, we go exactly the same. We go to your alternator one, which is right there, one side, same power, the other side, right here, same power. You can repeat this process with every single fuse, but as I said, some of the fuses, not all the time, but some of the fuses might not work if the engine is not running. Alright, so this takes us to the next step. Next step is going to be checking the connector on the alternator, which is quite simple. Just check that the wires are not broken and the connector is connected properly inside. And then with the earth, we're just going to check that it's nice, secure, and there's no corrosion, no rust going through the connector and maybe making us have a bad ground. So if you remove this in here, we can see that the connector is alright. It has a bit of crap in there, but it's okay. So there's not an issue with that. And then our connector right here, you can see we got 3 wires going in. If we can focus in there. So we got no issue with that. The plug is nice and tight right there. The other thing that we can check is the tension on a belt. I have done this already, so it's nice and tight but not too tight, so all the pulleys are working fine and they're not making any weird noises. So unfortunately, from here, our issue is going to be this. At least in my case, my issue is going to be the alternator. Quite simple to remove. What we're going to have to do is take this belt off, so we're going to have to take the tension off from this, between this bolt and the bolt that is right there. We can do that. And from there we can take the connectors off, and then we can take this one off and then just put the new one back in. This is going to be quite simple to remove, but before we do all of that, what I recommend you to do is disconnect the negative side of the battery and put like a rug or something so it's not touching anything else, so we have no power going towards the alternator. Alright, so to remove the alternator, all we're going to have to do is undo that one and this one here. It's only going to be a 12. I could get a ratchet, but I've been lazy and I'm just going to use a spanner. Now that we got them two loose, you can see that the alternator can tilt. But of course we're going to have to remove this one because that goes through the alternator on that hole right there. So we're going to have to remove that, and we're going to have to remove this one as well. So it's up to you. If you are at this point, you can remove it all the way, take them two out, and you can take your belt off as well. And in theory, when you got them to bottom out so the alternator can't tilt anymore, you should be able to just pull your belt right out of there and remove it. When you're undoing them, you can undo this one as well if you want, so you're not really pulling against this bolt here, and the alternator will tilt easily. Now that we got the belt off and we got them two off, I think what I'm going to do is loosen this one a bit so I can get to that connector easier and I'm not going to break it. As you can see right now, the alternator can move freely almost, but when you're doing this, something to bear in mind is that we don't want to lose this nut that we got here, because if this goes down there, it's going to be a nightmare to get it. So when you're removing the bolt out, grab that because otherwise you're going to have a bad time. I pull the alternator up so I can get better access to the green plug. We're going to disconnect that, we're going to disconnect this, we're going to take this one out without losing that, and we're going to remove the alternator. As you can see, it's covering shit, but the wires seem alright, so we're okay with that. And now we're going to proceed to disconnect the earth right there. When you remove your earth from the alternator, bear in mind you're going to have a nut and a crash washer there, so don't lose them. Put them somewhere that you know they're going to be safe, hopefully. So now, as I said, we remove this, being mindful that we don't lose that nut, that bracket here, and we can remove the alternator. I remove the bolt and the bracket without losing them. The only thing that I would say is that when you get to here, when you get out and it's basically this far away from coming off, you'll see that you're going to be touching right there on the fan, but it should be alright to get off. Now all we need to do is get the alternator out. Sometimes it will come out quite easily, sometimes you're going to have to wiggle it, sometimes you're going to have to put a bit of a pry bar here to push it forward because it's stuck right there and right there. So here we can compare the old alternator with the new one. Same connector, same 3-pin connector as we go right there, earth right there, and right here we got our part number. So let me turn that around, right up here. Most of you double check your parts before you order it, but every time you're buying something, it's good to go to your car, and if you can see the part number on it, take a photo of a sticker and then put them online on eBay or whatever you buy your parts, and then it will tell you like the crossover, so it will tell you that that same part matches with the aftermarket alternator like the one that I'm putting right now. And sometimes you can message them and send your reg number or your VIN number, and they will tell you if the alternator that they're supplying or whatever part they're supplying for you, it will match your car. All we need to do now is get that and put it there. So I managed to put the first bolt with the bracket. They're still loose, I just wanted to locate it. What I'm going to do now is connect my 3-pin plug and connect my earth to that. And then we can put the belt and we can put the other 2 bolts right here and we can start tightening that up. We got everything back on now. We got that nice and tight, that nice and tight to the marks that I previously made. I will link the video when I was doing the AC, and I'll let you know why I marked them like that and stuff like that, how you can take this off and get the right tightness on it. Alright, so the connector is on. This as well is nice and tight. If I didn't mention it before, to do this job, all you're gonna need is a 12mm, because that is 12mm, that's 12mm, that's 12mm, and that was 12mm. The new nut is 13, but yeah, otherwise with the 12mm you can do the whole thing. All we got left now is connect the battery, tighten that terminal up, and start the car and see if your battery is charging now. And now with the engine off, instead of having 11.9 or 11.8 as we had before, we go 12.5. On top of here there's a plastic cover that has a 10mm right here and 10mm right here, and then the throttle body cables connect with those pins, those clips that you can see. So I'm going to put that off camera. I just wanted to make sure that if you have that, you can put it back on now. And as you can see now, our battery is charging. It's good to always go through sort of this process, so you check first your fuses, you check your battery, because sometimes it could be just like a 20p fuse that is wrong, that is gone, that is blown, and you buy a new alternator for no reason. One thing that I would say is that I don't know if it was just my luck or I don't know what, but I had to clear the codes with the OBD2 reader before the alternator started working. It was weird. What I did is basically start the vehicle with a new alternator, but I started charging the battery partially, so it was only like 12.8 maximum or something like that, and then all of a sudden it just dropped down to again 11.9. So I went inside, checked for codes because I still have the engine management light on, clear that, restart the vehicle, and then it started charging properly, as you can see, to like 13.6 to 14. That's something that I didn't know, maybe just coincidence, I don't know. But bear in mind, if you still have the light, clear it before you start the vehicle again with your new alternator. And all we have left now is to be able to go for a drive and enjoy Forester again. So I'm going to go for a road test just to make sure that everything is working, all your lights, indicators, the blowers and all that. And I'm very happy that it's working again, because on Tuesday there is a Subaru meetup that would like to go, and I wasn't planning on taking it. I wasn't planning on going really. But one of the guys from the Subaru Forester group mentioned that he was going, see if anyone else wanted to go and stuff like that. And I thought, if I can get this working, I'm definitely be there. So very stoked on that, very happy. And since we managed to change the alternator in time, we got to go to this. But that's not all. And here is a tip. If you're changing any sort of component on your vehicle, don't do like I did this time. Normally I get new bolts, new nuts, washers and stuff like that. And this time I didn't. So the bolt, as you can see in that photo, snapped inside the alternator. Luckily for me, I was able to remove it without having to drill it or tap a new thread in there. So I was quite lucky. But that's not the last thing that happened this week. There's another little surprise, and it's not a good one. So let me show you. As you can see right there, there's a bit of rust and debris from something. That something is this. And that right there, my friends, is the rear spring and the compressor. But instead of leave you in a low note, I'm going to put here some photos of the meetup in Caffeine and Machine that we went to. I met some guys there from the Forester Owner Club, and it was amazing. So yeah, it seems like it never ends. But at least we managed to go to the meetup. I met some of the guys from the Subaru Forester Owners Club, and it was great. I can't wait to meet up with them, maybe do a couple of road trips or stuff like that, a few more meetups. Anyway, I'll bring all of that to the channel if we do or when we do. And as always, thank you for watching, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing if you do, and I shall see you very shortly.